Hey everyone, welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel podcast. This week, Wendy and I jumped on really quick to have a conversation about our own pivot inside of Serendipitous Rebel. And in a season where we are talking about purposeful pivoting, we wanted to really pull back the curtain and show you behind the scenes of our own business's personal pivot and the conversation that led us there. This is actually going to be a two-part episode because the conversation went a little long, but I know that there is just so much goodness in here that we know you are going to just love. So enjoy and let us know what you think.
Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Krystal. This podcast is for the adventure-loving, purpose-driven, action-minded, authentic, and rebellious entrepreneurs.
Just like us. And just like you, we are trying to figure shit out. So join us as we talk about business and life and everything in between. Hello, and welcome to the next. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry for laughing. The next episode of Serendipitous Rebel. Hi, I'm Wendy Guth, and we are actually being funny even before the start of this podcast. Wow.
Well, for the record, you cracked yourself up. I had said nothing funny.
I know.
and
it's really sad when I tend to do that. I'm a one person, just fun machine.
That's true.
Well, now that you're speaking, I am here with
Krystal Hiker. No one can say we don't have fun in our job.
That is so true. So unbelievably true. This season 2 of the Serendipitous Rebel podcast was initially designed for us to be sharing interviews. We interviewed each other. We're interviewing other people. But something happened 2 weeks ago that has us jumping on to share a conversation and to give you just a little bit more insight and background into how we're figuring shit out. And I could do a drum roll. I could, have like that weighted anticipation of, okay, what happened 2 weeks ago? Since everyone really wants to know, I will share. It started with a Voxer conversation that ended up as a multiple hour Zoom call where we had another purposeful pivot. And it was incredibly cathartic and helpful and focusing, and I could keep going on. But it was interesting because it started out with, why can't I even remember? It was a Voxer, and I think you had said something to me, and I was like, oh, I have to ponder that.
I think it was, why are we struggling to create content and put information out there? And what is and I think that there's a block.
Yes.
And
exactly it. Yes. You said, I think you have a block.
Yeah.
And then you responded, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't say something wrong. And the first thing is that in no way, because the tone was such that I would never be upset, but it just was food for thought. And I'm like, oh, wait. And then it was like, are we really in alignment? What exactly are we doing?
Yeah. And I think that this is a normal point that people hit in their businesses because we start throwing tactics at things. We start throwing strategies at things. And our tactics were, we were sending out a newsletter, we are doing this podcast, and we launched a coaching program. And what is the alignment? What is the purpose? What is it that we're trying to do? And I love that you started the conversation with, what is Serendipitous Rebel? What does that even mean?
I think we were both sort of laughing and saying, oh, it's the convergence of two brands. And honestly, what the F does that mean?
Yeah. And so we kind of had to sit and define. And I said at one point, that, and I think this is true when you're blending businesses and partnerships in general, right? Because I think we thought, oh, well, you are the Rebel on the Go and I'm Serendipitous Traveler. And we're going to just blend these two brands into Serendipitous Rebel. That sounds great. But the reality of it is that it is a brand new brand.
Mm-hmm.
It is a brand new we launched a brand new brand, a brand new business model this year. We went from owning a membership program together to now owning a coaching program together. The way that we make money is differently. The way we do business is differently. Our strategies are different. And it kind of hit at such a breakneck pace when we did launch this, because we were coming out of another partnership and we were kind of spinning our wheels, winding that down and winding this up, that while we were going through the motions and asking the questions, and we touched on it in season 1, we went through our values and we went through our strengths assessment and we found alignment there. But again, what is the branding and what does that mean? And so it took some definitions, because I think that when you're doing partnerships, it's easier to make assumptions too about what you think this is and then what I think this is. But you have to have those conversations, and they're difficult conversations because it really came down to having to acknowledge letting go of our brands a little bit to create this new thing.
Well, and for me, the block really was, as for social media, as a thought leader, I had always wanted to be as authentic as I could. And it was just missing the mark for me in terms of, like, when we did the values, when we did the strengths, it's our individual values, our individual strengths. And how does that jive with the business? And it was hard. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I don't mind doing social media at all. Sometimes I really enjoy it. But for me, I have this hesitation when things aren't aligned. And I was just like, well, and I think it really was the purpose. That was the big thing. I mean, when I think of my purpose, it's all about my personal purpose. It's like, I want to belong. Now, that's not to say I don't want to belong in an entrepreneurial world. I don't want to belong, I do want to belong. It's not that I don't want to belong as a business partner, all of these things. But when it came down to it, most of my passions and interests are outside of my business. Wow. And that's a tough thing to admit and then reconcile.
Yeah, because I think an entrepreneurial world really dictates sometimes you're going to do this because you're passionate about it. So when you talk to travel entrepreneurs, they're like, I love helping people travel. And the reality of it is, for me anyway, as a travel advisor, I just love to travel. And the passion was not there that I loved helping other people travel. And so I think we had to ask the question in that conversation, okay, what's the professional priority that gets us to show up here with focus? Because we did talk a lot about what are our personal priorities, and our personal priorities were very much in alignment. Our families are our priorities, our health, our own joy, our own well-being, all of those things are a priority. And we do believe we should prioritize the health, our own mental health, above the health of the business always. Because if we can't be healthy in those areas, the business is going to suffer. Why do we do this? Do we do this just because it's fun to hang out with each other, which it is?
Yes.
Is it fun? Do we do this just because we are dinking around and this is just a hobby? None of us were comfortable with that. And it finally came down to a point of having to own, oh, we do this because we want to make money.
Right. Yes. Well, and I think there was one piece that was right in front of that talked about, we also do this because we don't want to be invisible, which actually walks itself into the whole money piece. But we don't want to be invisible. We want to leave a legacy of some sort. And especially the invisibility part is also, there's a vulnerability in some of our dynamics as wives, as mothers, as women, that there's a dynamic where, we lose some of our flexibility. We lose some of our identity. But there's no question the end result is, in order to have the flexibility, in order to have the stability, and really what we're looking for at our core, we need to make money.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And it was interesting because, and you reminded me of a conversation that I honestly only vaguely remember, where you had asked me, not with Serendipitous Rebel, but I guess with the previous, is this just a hobby to you? It's not that I looked at working as a hobby. I just was less focused on money because of my own money story and my own money history. Money growing up, money as a single mom, a single working mom, those sorts of things. So it was really interesting in our conversation just to sort of pick through some fairly raw topics, issues.
Because money is money, there's so much emotion wrapped up in money.
Yes. Which, if you think about it, it's kind of, it just dawned on me, it's kind of like food. You need food. You need food to live. Shouldn't be living to eat or whatever. And at the same time, we need money. So it would be healthier if there was less tied to it, though that is so easier said than done. So easier said than done.
I agree. And the thing about, again, in the online entrepreneur space, it's interesting because you have to, and I saw a meme about a mom once, and I think it kind of true. I think that a lot of people want mothers to work like they're not mothers, but mother like they don't have to work, right? And when you think about money, you want to live like you have money, but you want to pretend like money doesn't matter. And it really you can't have it both ways. And I think that's the tension of both, and that I think is so interesting. And I think what really came up in our conversation of, we in the online space, you have either considered a bro marketer if you want to make 7 figures, right? And you want this lifestyle and you want this business, or you're just a dabbler and a hobbyist and you don't take this that seriously if you don't want those things. And we're actually going to challenge that there's something in between there that is very real and very raw, that says we as lifestyle entrepreneurs want to have a certain standard of living and want to be able to do certain things and have certain goals. They are driven by wanting to feel like we are accomplishing things, that we are making contributions to our family, to our world. We are leveraging our own strengths and gifts because we are 2 very bright, brilliant people that have value to add to this conversation. And we don't want to work 60-hour weeks. We don't really necessarily want to run this empire of 7 figures. We feel that, and we can acknowledge that we're in very fortunate places to be able to do and want those things, but it's a both and situation, not a either or.
Well, exactly. And, the thing is, my realization that money is important does not detract from my desire to be a thought leader. That I love digging into positive psychology and digging into, leadership and all the other topics and subjects that really make for that successful entrepreneur needs in terms of their mindset and their goals and all of that. It's not to take away from, this is, I have a love of learning. And it was interesting. We went back and re-looked at our values and strengths and realized that some of them are as much our skills and, that we use and that we love to use, as much as, what was I trying to say here? Just that it is a blend. It very, very much is a blend, that I think being rooted in knowing what your purpose is, and then knowing best how to reach it. Oh, and one of the things that kept coming up is reverse engineering, backward goal setting. It's like, what is it that you want to achieve? What is your purpose scream? And, for me, one of the key one of the key things for me to actually achieve my purpose is I block off time every day, Monday through Friday, at least 2 hours where I'm exercising.
At
And
least. You're so cute.
I know. Yeah, sometimes it's ridiculous. And, Fridays I don't work because it's more like 5 hours. And then I'm just tired. But this is incredibly critically important to me. But in order to do this, I have to have flexibility with you, Krystal, and with our clients. And also, you make money to pay for these things. Oh, let's just be honest. You make money to pay for these things. So it's like, if you reverse engineer that, I want the flexibility to be able to spend, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of time exercising every morning. I need a job. I need a job or something that allows me the flexibility to do that and the financial resources to do that. And I think you had mentioned that you're looking to take a Disney cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it takes money to do those things.
Yes, it really does. And I think there's a point in my life where I would have felt very ashamed. Ooh, I went there. I said the word. Very ashamed to admit to something like this. This is the kind of thing that you only admit, when you're, I don't know, had one too many beers or something. No, I'm not ashamed to say that. It does not take away the passions I feel for what I do, the love for our clients, things of that nature. It doesn't take that away, anything away from that. I think it's just, hopefully, for me at least, it puts it in a healthier perspective.
I agree. And I think you said something really interesting. And so Wendy was amazing. And she took, at the end of our conversation, she made all these great notes and she took the transcript. She did all this stuff. And so I've got like 11 pages of just goodness in front of me. You said something really interesting in that conversation. And I said, you can get exactly what you want out of this if you can clearly define it, and if you can put the right systems in place.
Oh, exactly.
And so I think it was a matter, and what was so important about this purposeful pivot and about this conversation was, okay, clearly defining what is Serendipitous Rebel. So we clearly defined what that brand was.
Mm-hmm.
It served, what goals did we have, and what were milestones that we were going to achieve along the way. We clearly defined that. And then we tied the tactics that we were doing to those goals. So we said, these are how many clients we want to serve. This is how much money we want to make.
Mm-hmm.
This is the exact type of clientele we want to bring into our world. And then how are we going to do that? Well, the podcast is clearly one avenue that we use in our business to not only share our thoughts and share our things, but it is a marketing strategy. And how are we going? Okay, so how many of these do we want to produce? And in what direction do we want to take the podcast? So we are doing the interview series that we've been working on for season 2. And being able to clearly define a purpose to all of these tactics gives you the creative flexibility to show up in all of these spaces and do them with a lot more passion and drive. And it's more fun because we're not sitting here wondering, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to think about? What are we doing? Because we know where it is that we want to go now. We know exactly what it is that we want to do. And we know by knowing those goals and knowing that there are financial goals tied to that as well, this is not us necessarily just sitting here and shooting the shit for fun on a podcast, though that's a really great side effect of all of this. I'm certainly glad that we get to do that. And yeah, we could Vox all day, and we do, and it's a ton of fun. But okay, what are the strategies and tactics that are going to be tied to it to get to our end goal, which is to make money so that you can do the things that you want to do, so that I could take that cruise. And that was an interesting shift to me that I think we don't talk about enough was, okay, what is it that you want to be and what does it take to get there?
Yes, exactly. And it's so interesting that life requires balance. And when you, and one of the things that I always take away from the what they call positive psychology 2.0
Mm-hmm.
is that life is not always roses and puppies, but life is about balance. And there's some bad, there's some bad, and you just hope that the good outweighs the bad. I like to think at the end of the day, if my glass is slightly above half full, I'm just really happy it's been such a success. And it's also the balance that when you look at your purpose, it can't be just driven by one thing. So for people who are just driven by money, it's not necessarily a healthy purpose.
Mm-mm.
There needs to be that balance. And also, I know for me, not taking money into the equation and trying to say, oh, money doesn't matter. Well, that takes away a bit of the seriousness and the skin in the game. And it's not, or the thought of, oh, I can just, dump money into a business. But at some point, and we talk a lot about runways and setting goals and achieving the goals and hitting marks, that it's like, oh, well, that applies to me too. That really has to apply to me too. And it really is it's actually freeing. It's really freeing.
For me, when it comes to money, I was always a put my head in the sand kind of person. I didn't like talking about money. Ask my husband. I don't like talking about money. Why are we talking about this? What budgets? What? He actually threw a budget spreadsheet in front of me last week. And I said, and those of us married know how those conversations tend to go. And my first reaction always for a long time was to put my head in the sand. And even with my business, and especially my first business, my first travel business, it was easier just to not look at the numbers. If I just didn't look at them and I didn't pay attention, it didn't really exist. And the reality of it is, when I did look at the numbers, one, knowing those things really helped make a lot of decisions for me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I know that in this iteration, looking at the numbers actually really sparked a lot of creativity for both of us to say, okay, how can we do that? Because now it's not a matter of just being an ideation. There's now putting some tactical and strategy behind it. We talked a couple weeks ago about manifesting things and that word has always just bugged the bejesus out of me. Because, people would say, well, I'm just going to manifest money. I'm going to manifest money. Well, I can sit here and I can think all the live long day about manifesting. If I don't do a damn thing besides think about it, it's not going to do any good. And to that point, you and I said all the time, we can talk about our great ideas and great thoughts all the live long day. But if we don't do anything with them, if we don't record the podcast and put them out into the world, if we don't create the content
on its own. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to draw. I was saying is it's not going to happen on its own.
No, it's not.
And it's one it's one thing to have an open mind and really not be closed in and say, oh, I'm never going to make money. You don't want to do that.
No.
But you want to say, as you're doing the daily tasks that you need to do, oh, this is going to have a great outcome. This is going to have a great outcome. But yeah. And I think that's one of the things I think that's always been great about you, is that you're very realistic, that this whole manifestation without implementation is bullshit.
It is.
I call bullshit.
It is. Well, so today I got the Monday morning question from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And
I love him.
I know. And it says, if you keep doing what you're about to do today for the next 5 years, will you end up with more of what you want or less of what you want?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, okay, I'm going to go for a walk this morning. It is a slap in the face, but it is true. It's not the big things that we do that make our businesses successful. It is the small things that we implement consistently over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I do think in Serendipitous Rebel, you and I do a very good job of doing those small incremental things and being very leery of giant big pushes just for the sake of big pushes. But I do think we've maintained some consistency amongst things of, putting out our newsletters, of working through our programs, of launching on deadlines, of things like that, that is what we have to do to keep incrementally keeping the drum beat going. When we think about, okay, how do we model that for our clients? And I think one of the drum beats of entrepreneurship is do as I say, not as I do sometimes, because we're great at putting services in place for our clients and not really implementing the same things in place for our business. Like really great at setting up workflows for the clients, but then I have to like really put a boot at my own butt to like get the same good workflows set up in place for us. We tell our coaching clients, you need to have milestones. You need to have this, you need to celebrate. And then we realized, oh, but we're not creating we're not creating milestones, and we're not celebrating our milestones. Oh man, now what do we do with that? And so we wrote those things down in that conversation of, okay, not only what are the milestones that say that we're going to achieve that goal. So we did the backwards goal planning. How are we celebrating those things?
Right, exactly.
And really wrote down, when we achieve this, we are going to go do this. When we achieve this, I think that the small milestone was we're going to go get our nails done and have a pamper day. And when we achieve the mid thing, you and I are going to hop on a plane and meet somewhere and literally toast each other and then hop on a plane back home. And how are we actually going to put action to the thought? Because our thoughts are great all the live long day, but if there's no action tied to it, it just doesn't do any bit of good. And so it really did come down to, again, what is the purpose of the business that keeps us focused here, give us the grit and the resilience to keep showing up here every single day. And how does it fulfill our purpose, our personal priorities, and how do we make sure those don't come into conflict? And that's a tougher question.
Oh, very much so.
Whew. All right, guys, we are going to put a pause in right there, and we will be back next week for part 2 and digging into those hard questions next week on the Serendipitous Rebel podcast.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.